Prosperity would reinforce support for liberal democracy and reduce the risk of war. The post-war social contract, with national variations, demonstrated that a social form of contained capitalism could be successful economics. In that era, the economy grew at record rates, even as it became more equal. This was true throughout the West, suggesting that common, systemic dynamics were at work. But that era has given way to one alarmingly like the 1920s, and with similar repercussions. A decent political economy is still possible, but it will again require an exceptional politics. Second, contrary to a lot of commentary blaming the loss of secure livelihoods on such factors as trade, technology, and the shift from manufacturing to services, nothing in the structure of the late 20th century economy compelled a reversion to an unregulated 19th century market. This was a political shift. The economic turbulence of the 1970s opened space for elites to weaken democratic counterweights to capital, substantially using globalization as their instrument. The resulting policies were perverse for efficiency as well as for equality. Third, the dominant role of the U.S. during and after World War II is central both to the creation and the destruction of a decent economy. In the early 1940s, America was in a rare progressive mood. The global institutions created in 1944, when American power was preeminent, were intended to allow both the U.S. and its allies in Europe to build mixed economies in the spirit of the New Deal, insulated from the speculative power of private finance. When American government turned back into an ally of finance beginning in the 1970s and continuing emphatically in the 1980s, its goals for the global system also reversed. Fourth, today's version of globalization is profoundly anti-democratic. On one flank, global trade agreements narrow the space for national policy and weaken government's ability to housebreak capitalism. On the other flank, the popular revulsion against the results of globalization is elevating anti-democratic leaders, parties, and ultra-nationalist sentiments. The rise in terrorism and in fear of aliens, in a parallel dialectic, promotes domestic support for anti-foreign strongmen. Radical Islam and right-wing populism in the West are in symbiosis. The fifth and final observation concerns the collapse of the democratic left. Anger against market excess can go right toward fascism, or can energize a progressive left that anchors a decent economy. By the 1990s, center-left parties, led by Bill Clinton in the U.S. and Tony Blair in the U.K., had joined the neoliberal globalist consensus, undermining their own credibility when ordinary people decided they'd had enough. Social democratic parties across Europe have lost support, as much of their working-class base has defected to the far right. The global regime produced such tight constraints on national policy, enforced by financial markets, that even when further left parties, such as Greece's Syriza coalition, managed to get elected, they found themselves shackled by the system's rules. All of this muddled politics. Today, large numbers of citizens throughout the West are angry that the good life is being stolen from them. They are not quite sure whom to be angry at: immigrants, corporations, the government, politically correct liberals, the rich, the poor. The anger is both unfocused and inchoate, but increasingly articulated by a neo-fascist right. The election of Donald Trump and the British vote to exit the European Union, neither of which will remedy the pocketbook grievances, are emblematic of this muddle. After the attacks of September 11, 2001, some commentators declared a clash of civilizations, as Samuel P. Huntington famously termed it, the democratic West against a barbaric form of radical Islam. Well before 9/11, fellow political scientist Benjamin Barber's book title, Jihad versus McWorld, summed it up. The commercial often